Hi, everybody. My name is Nick Mishko. I help lead our data analytics practice as part of our insights division here at Calligo, where we work to partner with companies to do everything from setting up data pipelines and data warehouses, all the way to developing data visualization tools and machine learning models. So there's a lot that we do, but for today, I want to focus on a topic that's relevant to property management firms around the globe, and that is extracting data from Yardi and using that data to build analytics tools. So having talked to a number of customers in the property management world, this is something that comes up time and time again. And if it's done right, it can help to streamline operational efficiency and ultimately produce better outcomes for those firms. During this time, I'll briefly touch on how we get there, but the end goal that we strive for is a suite of dashboards that can be surfaced up to the relevant people in an organization so that they have the information they need in real time to make decisions as quickly as possible. So I'm talking about tools like an executive revenue overview that leaders can quickly understand the health of their property portfolio and start to address problem areas or even surface up important information to investors without having to reach out to data owners, request reports, and receive things that might be in suboptimal formats like Excel reports or large pivot tables. I'm also talking about tools like occupancy detail reports that highlight communities and unit types that might be unoccupied or may become unoccupied in the near future. So that way the property managers can use this tool and know exactly where their focus should be on a daily basis. I'm also referring to tools like sales pipeline analysis that allows property managers, again, and marketers as well, to make sense of underperforming properties and ultimately pinpoint exactly where in the sales funnel that prospects might be falling out. So these are the types of tools that can be built once data is extracted from Yardi. So I want to get back to the dashboard shortly, but first I want to talk about some of the common pain points that we see our customers encounter when they embark on this journey. And I'll also touch on a couple of the strategies that we've used to successfully navigate those challenges. So let's dive in. And I want to just touch quickly on what Yardi is. I'm sure that most of you that are tuning in are already aware of that, but just to make sure everyone's on the same page here, Yardi is one of the premier property management softwares on the market. So they have thousands of customers. They offer an excellent platform for managing financial and property management information in one centralized location. And just to be specific here as well, I am mainly referring to Yardi Voyager and Yardi Rent Cafe, as those are the modules that we've worked with most in the past. So again, as great as Yardi is, we still see a number of customers hitting a roadblock, and that is when they want to extract their data from Yardi to develop analytics tools for their business or even for their customers, right? Think about property management portals for tenants and surfacing up external analytics to those folks as well. So it's not necessarily a simple process when it comes to extracting data and then storing and modeling that data and then using it to develop useful analytics tools. And there's a few key reasons for that. And so you might resonate with a couple of these here. The first issue that we see a lot of customers run into is the data model behind Yardi. So there's a pretty large and complicated data model on the back end. And if you're wondering what that is, most folks that work with Yardi don't typically end up peeking under the hood, but if you did, you'd find more than 1,000 tables, multiple columns, multiple data types that create this vast data model where all your information is stored. And so without familiarity of that data model, without familiarity of the individual tables that can be useful, or the ability to actually query that data, right, pulling it out can seem like a pretty daunting task. So that's issue number one that we come across oftentimes with customers, is that they just don't exactly know how to work with this huge data model that's on the back end of Yardi. The second thing that we see is that Yardi users a lot of times customize their Yardi instance, and they end up with these free text fields or non-validated fields that over time, when property managers and other people are inputting text into those fields, it's great for the user interface of Yardi, but when it comes to extracting that data, it's oftentimes dirty and a little bit unruly. And so cleaning that data up and making it useful and getting it in the right format is sort of daunting task number two if you make it there. And then the third thing that we see is it's often difficult for customers is integrating Yardi with other data sources. So this can be extremely cumbersome if data is not properly stored, cleaned, and modeled. The other thing that we find is that customers often want to pull in additional data sources. So think about things like market rent rates or housing market data. If your initial data that's extracted from Yardi is not clean and organized in a central location, then integrating additional data sources on top of that can be next to impossible to accomplish. So these are some of the challenges that we see over and over again with Yardi. But the good news is, even with these hurdles, there are effective strategies for extracting your data from Yardi. And at Calligo, we've used a number of methods, including API calls, copying backups of the database. There's a few different strategies that we've used, but specifically with our most recent customers, so they don't have read-only access to their Yardi instance. We were able to take that read-only access, identify the necessary tables for our analysis. A lot of that came from just prior experience using Yardi, understanding which tables have what information, and understanding which ones are going to actually be useful. But ultimately identified those tables and then used Azure Data Factory to extract the identified tables. And then we stored and we modeled that in a Snowflake data warehouse. So there's obviously a fair amount of work and expertise that goes into that, but the end result was a clean, organized data environment that had all of the necessary data, and most importantly, it was accessible to the folks that needed it. So in addition to extracting and modeling that data, we also set up monitoring and alerts and data validation. We kept historical records on an ongoing basis, and all of this allowed us to create reporting data sets that could then be used to power analytics tools like the ones I shared previously, so that they could actually be surfaced up in a consumable fashion to end users. So if you're finding yourself and your team facing some of the same issues that I mentioned, feel free to reach out and schedule some time with Calligo. We'd love to chat with you. We'd love to talk about what it can look like to actually take advantage of the data that exists within Yardi. So before we go, I'd also love to share a more detailed demo of the kind of analytics tools that can be created once your data has been properly extracted from Yardi. So let's jump back over and revisit the executive overview dashboard that I shared previously. So for those of you that are wondering, this dashboard has been developed using Tableau, and it's meant to serve as a general overview for an executive audience, hence the name. And it's specifically targeting people who care about all up company and community performance. So we're supplying these leaders with all sorts of metrics, but specifically we are looking at vacancy and the opportunity cost associated with vacancy. And the first thing that I want to draw your attention to is this occupancy percentage target up here. So this is the type of functionality that you can incorporate into these tools once you extract your data from Yardi and start to use some of the premier analytics tools on the market like Tableau or Power BI. And so let's say that I'm a manager and I want to increase the target from 90 to 94%. I can do that, and you'll see the dashboard updates in real time. We now see there's more properties that are short of the target, and that makes sense, right? Because we increased it. But we can also decrease that back down to 90 just by clicking in, typing, and hitting enter. And we see that we've got 2 properties below currently that are short of that target. So as we continue down, we also have this vacancy section here. And so that is on the top left for a reason. That is kind of the most important metrics that we're looking at. And specifically, what we want to have this section serve as is a place where executives can evaluate what opportunities for revenue increase could look like. So we're really trying to draw attention to is the vacant revenue number, because we know what the market rent rates are. We know we can integrate that into our data set, and then we can use our vacant units to actually calculate the amount of revenue that's been lost over time from the units that are sitting vacant. So rather than just highlighting the fact that we have 26 vacant units on average per month, we look to highlight the fact that the 26 vacant units represent over $5 million of lost revenue that we need to try to recover as quickly as possible. So that's the key thing that we're showing here. And users also have the ability to look at this over time. And again, by default, we're looking at vacant revenue, but we can look at occupied revenue as well. I'll switch that back to vacant here. And one thing that is really another useful feature of this dashboard is the ability to drill in directly from the visuals. So if one of your leaders is interested in the last 4 months, say, all they have to do is click and drag over those 4 months, and the dashboard will update to reflect that time frame. Now, one thing I want to call out here is that when we see executives and other employees start to get more comfortable and more used to using these kinds of analytics tools, they start to get better at recognizing opportunities for improving revenue. So when we drill in here, we immediately see that Las Vacas is underperforming, and they have the highest amount of lost revenue from their vacant units, right? And so to see this in a bit more detail, we've integrated some additional functionality in terms of putting some visualizations inside of the tooltip. So a user can actually hover over this and see the vacant revenue trending over time. We can see there's a pretty significant spike in July. And we're also showing a few important KPIs. So we're showing the market rate, the actual rate, and then the difference between those. And one thing I want to call out here as well is that we're not expecting executives to dig in and to understand the issues surrounding every single community, but you'll see that we do want to provide a call to action here. So we have the contact information for the general manager of Las Vacas, and that provides the ability to actually take action and to reach out to that person so that they can begin to put a plan in place for how to address some of these challenges. So when we think about where this goes, right, we ideally have an operational dashboard for that general manager as well, so that they can begin to address performance on a bit more of a granular level, where they can dig into things like individual units, individual unit types. They can look at the sales funnel for their specific community, right? So ultimately, we want this to be a situation where everyone has the right information in the right format to manage their specific part of the business. So I want to thank you all for tuning in today. And again, if you're someone who's currently using Yardi and you're facing some of the same challenges that we've talked about, or if you simply just want to begin using analytics to drive your business forward, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to hear from you and to chat about how we can help you accomplish your goals. So thanks again, and until next time, everybody.